It's time for your wake-up call. Wake up the passion and God's purpose in you. In the Wake Up Call radio show. Join host Pastor Warren and Annie Sally and their guests for a powerful dialogue. Real talk for everyone. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Hello and welcome to the Wake Up Call Talk Show. I'm your host, Annie Sally. Today we are actually talking about stress, anxiety, and depression. Anxiety is a feeling of worry, nervousness, and unease. Stress is a feeling of emotional or physical tension. It can come from any event or thought that makes you feel frustrated and angry or nervous. So welcome to our show. Today we have Dr. Chastity Adams. She's a wife, a mother, she's a psychologist, she's a life coach, and she's also the author of Reclaiming Your Best Self. Welcome, Dr. Chastity.
Thank you. And I love being on your show. Thank you so much for having me.
We love having you with us. You bring a wealth of knowledge to our platforms, and our guests love to have you as our special guest. So welcome. How's things going in Charlotte?
Things are, as I've said to people, things are going, we're hanging, we're managing. And I try to be really genuine with people during this time because some people look at me and they think whatever they think. But as a psychologist, it seems like I have it all together. I like to with people. I do have things together, but I don't have it all together. Nothing is perfect. Good. My situation isn't perfect. We're doing the best we can given these circumstances.
Absolutely. And that's why I wanted to actually do this show so that we can touch base on some of the situations that we are dealing with during the COVID-19, such as homeschooling. You have two small kids, therefore I know you're homeschooling as well. And then the challenges of marriages during this season. You know, a lot of couples are getting on each other's nerves. So there's a lot that we're dealing with as COVID-19 has interrupted everyone's life. No one is excluded from this. So we wanted to just talk about some of the issues that we're dealing with as it relates to this pandemic. First of all, we hear a lot about the physical well-being, so far as the communities are coming together and they are providing aid for the less fortunate, and plus the seniors, which is a great thing, and I applaud them all. However, very seldom do you hear anyone talk about our emotional health, which is really being attacked during this time. People are losing their jobs. Companies are downsizing. Companies are shutting down. Cities, countries are in a lockdown. So our world is much different than what we are accustomed to. So let's talk about anxiety, first of all, and how it affects us normally and even the more in these down seasons.
Absolutely. So earlier you mentioned stress and anxiety. So I will just differentiate a little bit between those two, elaborate a little more. Stress can be what we call regular stress, good stress, bad stress. And oftentimes people call good stress eustress, which is eustress. And then we have the negative stress we will often call distress. So stress often is a normal part of life. If we're going to experience life, we're going to experience some stress. Stress is inevitable. That's the eustress and distress, both of them. It's inevitable. However, anxiety isn't necessarily inevitable. Anxiety is when you're worrying about what might happen. Anxiety is the what if. So during this pandemic, if we're wondering, what if my job doesn't call me back? That is
right.
What if my kids do not go back to school this year? That is anxiety. However, that is quite valid. I was just informed my children are not going back to school this school year, so I'm having to deal with that.
Yes.
Interestingly, anxiety often is being anxious about something that may not have any truth to it. But during this pandemic, there actually is a lot of truth to the anxiety. It's quite valid.
Yes. So how do we differentiate between the two? Like you said, sometimes anxiety is about truth and sometimes it's not. How do we find that balance?
Yeah. So we can always fact check. So if it's something in the future that may or may not, and there's no evidence, we kind of have to leave it where it is. So people who experience intense anxiety have a hard time letting things go, which oftentimes is an attachment to a particular thought. So when I'm assisting people with anxiety, we work on letting go of that attachment to that particular thought because there is no evidence. So it's just not helpful to keep going to that dark place if there's no evidence. Or I said dark because of the pandemic, and it seems like many of the places people are going right now are dark. But sometimes we go to places that are too flowery and rosy, and there is no valid basis to that as well. So it could go either way. If there's no truth to it, it's just not going to be helpful for us to continue to go in that place is out there somewhere. I'm going to encourage you to right now, the present moment. That's where mindfulness comes in handy, when we can bring our attention back to right here, right now, in this moment.
That's good. That's very good. Let's talk about even depression, you know, for those that deal normally with depression, such as chronic illness. They're known to deal with depression because of the long-term chronic illness. What would you say to those people that are battling or in bouts of depression during this time, even the more, you know, this is kind of normal for them. However, because of what we see in the news and sitting in front of the TV day in and day out, it takes a toll.
Absolutely. So to your point, I think you kind of mentioned earlier about anxiety as well, that there are some people who were probably dealing with anxiety before the pandemic. The same thing with depression. There were people dealing with depression before this pandemic, and now it has absolutely been exacerbated. And many of the skills and tools that I would have recommended to them prior to this, I'm no longer able to recommend in the same fashion. So speaking of depression, that's the one you just mentioned. With depression, we often encourage people to get out of the house. So yes, I am encourage people to get out of the house, but they're going to be limited to where they can go. That's very unfortunate. However, I'm a fan of being creative. So you can still leave your house. Hikes, walks, nature trails, none of those things have been off limits. So we can still do those things. And for some people, the depression is so intense that walking, hiking, that's very challenging. I asked them to go start small, walk to the mailbox. I will ask people to walk to the mailbox because vitamin D is so important. I really want them to get out of the house and get some natural sunlight. And many African Americans are deficient in vitamin D. So it's so important to step outside and get some natural sunlight. So that is one thing with depression I would often recommend. In addition to going out, I would recommend that they still attempt to connect with people. Again, I realize it's hard. It's harder than ever now. Picking up the phone and calling someone, that wasn't their thing before the pandemic. So it's definitely
Right.
not going to be their thing right now. But if there is a part of them that truly wants to get well, and I say a part of them because when you're depressed, you're not motivated to do anything, not even to get
Anything.
well. That is part of depression. There is this dark filter that everything is negative, everything is hard. It's just really challenging. However, I do know that most people have a little light in them, and that little light in them that wants them to get well, I try to speak to that place. And in
Mhm.
that place, I ask them to maybe send someone a text. That's often benign for people more so than picking up the phone and calling. But send a text. Send a text.
That's good. And that is so important. What me and my siblings are doing during the season, we're doing a lot of group chats, you know, virtual group chats. And just to see their faces and connect with them, it helps you to feel better, you know, because it's a lot going on around us and we don't know when it's going to end. So, quite naturally, that causes a lot of anxiety.
Yeah.
So, the other thing that concerns me, and I experienced this just yesterday, and my heart goes out for seniors that are homebound.
Mhm.
A lot of doctors' offices are closing. So they do virtual chat. You may do that as well with your clients. Um, just for them to do a virtual chat and to be computer savvy, that's a challenge. A lot of them live alone,
Yeah.
but they need to connect with their doctors. They need people to care for them and check in on them. And so my heart really goes out for them because we're in the computer age where a lot of people are getting left behind just from the basics. Your thoughts?
Yes, I completely agree with you. You just mentioned a particular population, the seniors. I think it's
Mm,
very challenging for them right now because we're asked to quarantine, so their families can't even check on them. But I will tell you,
absolutely.
yes, what's really neat, I've heard some people say with their senior parents and family members, they're doing little drive-bys where the
Oh,
parent
that's
will be in the window and just wave at them. So that's being
yes.
creative. Let's be creative, or they step out on their porch and the person is way more than 6 feet away from them. And they
Hmm.
can communicate like that. Again, this is the time when we really have to think outside the box and be creative.
Absolutely.
Historically, this is not something we would have considered doing, going over to someone's
Nope.
house and not actually seeing them, but
Hmm.
giving air hugs, blowing
Yeah,
from afar. Those small things can make someone's day. So I'm going to say this, if anyone knows of any senior family members out there who maybe are living alone or you just can't touch them, there are ways to be creative and still connect with them. And that's one of them, to be able to drive by and they come outside, you wave at them, you give them a virtual air hug, you blow a kiss. And I think that's really helpful for some young kids to be able to see their grandparents or their aging
absolutely.
family members during this time.
That's awesome. That's a great idea. Talk about how COVID-19 pandemic has affect the youth. I'm really concerned about the youth. I'm really concerned about them. We've had more time on this earth to adapt to change. However, they haven't. And so they are getting depressed, being isolated, not being able to attend their games, their pet rallies, and um, all of the functions they engage in. You know, I'm thinking about my grandson right now because basketball is his thing, and he's got his schedule up until next year, and he's playing and traveling with his team. All of a sudden, he's benched. The
Mm.
entire team is benched,
Mm.
and I know that's very depressing for him. So, talk about some of the things we can do for the younger generation during this time.
Yes.
How can we help them? Is there a conversation we need to have, or how can we give aid to them?
Absolutely. I too am concerned about our youth during this time. The good thing about them is that many of them are tech savvy and we're
Hmm.
doing a lot virtual. So actually, we can be a little more creative with them.
Okay.
So a lot of the things that our seniors may struggle with, our young people are into. My children know more about Google Classroom and Zoom than I do. So the beauty of Mhm. So our younger generation, one of the things we don't want to forget is that they are resilient. So I know
Mm,
we're focusing on depression and anxiety, but I have to mention how resilient young people are and humans. But specifically, we're talking about young people. They are very resilient. So I know
okay.
that they have a lot of losses. They're losing out on graduations, team sports,
Prom.
activities, proms. Those things are important, and I don't want to minimize those. That is so important. I actually think it's great.
Hmm.
So at first thought, I think about prom. Many people have already purchased their dresses and they can't take them back.
Yeah,
I would want them to do a Zoom prom where everyone,
that would be nice.
and then they maybe walk around and they have a DJ and they're in their own and they're having a little dance. Of course, it's not.
Zoom,
It's of course.
Zoom prom.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Or Google Hangouts, and there's so many other apps. A client just mentioned to me today, House Party, another app, some other kind of Hangout app. But doing
Mhm.
something like that is being creative and still keeping them connected. Most importantly, right now, we want them to stay connected because
Absolutely.
an issue with some of our youth already was that many of them were disconnected because of all the technology.
Mhm.
But we still want to make sure that they are emotionally connecting with people outside of just the technology. So that's why walking still comes in handy because guess what? You may see some of your friends along the way. You can
That's
see
right.
distance. You can say hello from afar. But if you get out, if you're in a community type neighborhood, it's a high possibility. You may even see some of the kids you go to school with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what about our smaller kids? I know your girls are pretty young. Should there be a conversation about what's going on? Because it's devastating to us. We can only fathom what the kids are feeling and how afraid they are,
Yes.
and how much stress they're accumulating just by watching us and being out of the rhythm of things.
So yes, as you know, I have young children. I have a 10-year-old and an almost 8-year-old. And I was just talking to someone about this today. I think they're living their best lives because they're loving homeschooling. They are loving it more than I am. They have come in, they have commented a few times that they miss their teacher given what's going on with me trying to teach them because it's not really working out. But they love this rhythm. So as a parent, I think it's going to be helpful to encourage parents to be mindful of what energy you're giving out. So my
Mhm.
husband and I are very mindful of keeping a routine and a schedule.
Mhm.
So
That's
I have a schedule of events on my refrigerator and it's very flexible. It's not a schedule where you have to do this, that, and the other. No, no, no. There's a schedule, so I will not hear anybody say they're bored. And I have not heard anybody say they're bored because there is a schedule. But this
that's
keeps a
good.
rhythm and a routine. We still try to go to bed around the same time every night. We still set an alarm to wake up around the same time. We have lunch during a particular time. We have dinner during a particular time. So there are some
Good.
things that are remaining consistent for them because there is so much, as you mentioned earlier, uncertainty and
Mhm.
inconsistency. We do our best to try to still keep some things certain. Some things are,
That's
I'll say relatively, some things relatively certain and some things relatively consistent. And I think that helps keep them going.
that's good.
And it,
Very good.
In addition to that, I want to make sure I say this that with parents being home all day, it's going to be helpful that they limit TV time. Because with the television, and I'm talking about news TV time, because if after 9 o'clock when my children are in bed, we do turn on CNN so that we can see what's going on. But at one point, my husband was trying to have CNN on all day. He's corporate, and in the corporate building, they would have CNN on all day. So that was part of his consistency and his routine to have CNN going in the background. I had to request that we do not do that because I didn't want my kids seeing that.
That's good.
Every day being inundated with this very scary information. So
absolutely.
A question you asked was, would you talk to them and how would you? So
okay.
Yeah, I would, and I do talk to my kids about what's going on. I speak to them very age appropriately. There's actually a lot of information online about how to speak with kids about COVID-19. I've received several emails that were really helpful. But age appropriately, they notice it is a pandemic going on. We've explained to them what that means. We've explained to them how we are taking necessary precautions, which at this point, we all wear masks when we go out. They know that dad is working from home. They know why he's working from home. They know that I'm doing a hybrid, which means that I'm going into office and I'm seeing some people in office and I'm seeing some people virtually, and they understand why. They understand why we're not having play dates the way that we usually do. So that has interrupted their schedule a lot. I enjoy hosting and I'm always inviting kids over. We're not doing that now. But what we are doing for Easter, we had a virtual Easter program. So my girls and some of their friends and family members, they all remembered a scripture, a Bible scripture, and then they recited their Bible scripture. We had someone else discuss the meaning of Easter. My big girl, my 10-year-old, she sang a song. It was amazing. And we did that Easter. And after that, we did an Easter egg hunt, took some pictures, and had a dinner. So we still were able to celebrate Easter. And we felt like we celebrated it with family because we had some family on the Zoom call.
Nice. Very nice. Wow. That is good. Some great information to help our children and grandkids deal with this epidemic. What about married couples? How can we continue or even grow in our relationship with our spouses during this season?
And that's a really good question. I have something kind of funny. I was actually mentioning this to my husband recently, saying that, I wonder how will couples grow during this time? I don't feel like we're doing much to nurture our actual marriage. He said, you know what? During this season, this is not the season of nurture. This is the season of just surviving and staying together. I said, okay. I'm not upset with their response. I'm not upset with their response. We've been married this year for 17 years, together for 19.
Wow.
So, yes, we are very open with communicating with each other because I've recently said to him, I said, all this time at the house, you would think we'd be connecting more. I don't feel like we're really connecting. Not that we're disconnecting, but we're not really working on us. But my story is that I have 2 young children that we are pouring into all day. Every day. No breaks, clearly. So at 9:00 after they're in bed, we're both burnt out and pooped. And that's the word he used recently. He said, babe, I think we're both burnt out and pooped. I said, babe, I think you're right. Okay. And we were good with that. So one of the things I'm going to encourage during this season is open communication.
That's good.
Communication. I truly practice what I preach. Yes, I can mention different strategies, but what are we using right now in my household? Open communication.
Communication.
And talking about why we're doing what we're doing. Right now, we are mindful that we're pouring into these kids. And by the time the day is over, we are exhausted. And I think it's important for him to pour into himself at the end of the day and for me to pour into myself. And because we're communicating about it, we don't feel like we're leaving each other out. We know that this is for a greater good. We both understand and accept that.
Well, on that note, you said it's important for both of you to pour into yourselves. Talk about self-care and how important self-care is. Because of the pandemic, because of, everything relating to the pandemic, we can get kind of lost in the shuffle. So How important is self-care during this season? How important is self-care?
Absolutely. Self-care is very important during this season. Self-care is something that I've talked about often, and I've often differentiated self-care from grooming. And grooming, of course, we know, is getting our nails done, our hair done, facials, and things to that nature. There's nothing wrong with that, but that's more grooming than actual self-care. So this particular season, this season of COVID-19, the pandemic, is preventing us from utilizing grooming as a form of care, which is very challenging. So with that being said, I'm going to encourage people to really use this time to figure out other ways of engaging in self-care outside of grooming. And one way in particular I'm going to encourage is mindfulness. Mindfulness is so important for self-care because with everything going on in the world and all of the uncertainty, we need to be grounded somewhere. And mindfulness can help ground us. Some people think mindfulness is all about Buddhism, philosophy, and it's not. Historically, it was, but now it's been watered down in the West, and it goes very well with religion and spirituality. And what that means is that we are placing our feet on solid ground. And regardless of what's going on in the world around us, we are unshaken. And that's what mindfulness do. Mindfulness means that our mind can go somewhere really, really dark during this time, really, really dark. We gently get back to this too shall pass. And that's one of my mantras. Especially during this time, my mindful mantra is this too shall pass. Another one is this is a wrinkle in time. So when my mind starts going, I gently bring it back to this is just a wrinkle and this too shall pass. And the more I hone in on that skill of mindfulness, the better I am with dealing with life, the full capacity of life. And that's truly what life is. And that's not in a pejorative or bad way. Life really is this full catastrophe. If you want to live a full life, you will experience the full catastrophe. So during this season, I will encourage people to consider some type of mindfulness regimen. And there are some free apps out there. I've mentioned earlier in this week on other places, but I'll mention them again here. Headspace is a meditation mindfulness app. Insight Timer is another app. An app is called Mindfulness. That is the name of it, Mindfulness.
Okay.
Headspace, Insight Timer, Mindfulness. There's one other that is escaping me right now. Calm, C-A-L-M. That's another app. It's C-A-L-M. So again, I'm going to request and ask people to consider engaging in some type of mindfulness. In addition, for self-care, I encourage people to get out and go for a walk. So people have heard me say that walking has been part of my self-care. I often will walk by myself. So now my self-care has been interrupted because we go on family walks. Pros and cons, pros and cons. I no longer do my private walk. So now I take the longest hot showers in the world.
Okay, that's another escape.
That is another form of self-care for me. I am in there, I'm practicing my mindfulness skills because my mind is going to wander. The shower is an interesting place. People's minds like to wander in there. So I use that time to gently bring my attention to the feel of the water on my body. And that is a mindfulness skill to notice what you feel. So in the shower, there is sensory going on. You can see the steam. You can smell the water. You can feel the hot water in your body. If you want to, you can stick your tongue out and taste it. But noticing senses, tapping into your five senses is a mindfulness skill. Another form of self-care during this time is to eat as healthy as possible. And I say as possible because I want everyone to give compassion and grace to yourself if you are not eating as healthy as possible. But if you can, I encourage people to consider it because I am human too. I walk past the pantry and it says my name. So I stop. And I open it and I eat something in there. So I'm asking everyone to have compassion and grace, but as much as possible, be mindful of what you're putting into your body during this time, because even if you don't deal with depression, a little bit can seep in during this time. Even
Absolutely.
if you're not to depression, just being cooped up in the house, being told you can't do anything, these restrictions are contrary to what it means to be a human, and it can weigh heavy even on the best of us.
Absolutely. I love how you broke down self-care, because many of us equate self-care to getting our hair done, getting our nails done, getting our feet done, that type of thing. But then we starve the emotional self-care. You know, how do I really feel? Because I've prepared the outward man, but how do I feel inside? So with you saying taking that nice shower, a long bath, a long walk, I love to walk. I just get out and just walk, because that's my time for me. When the weather is bad, I have a stepper. So I get on my stepper and I try to, do it at least 30 minutes every day. When it's raining, I'll sit on my porch, have a cup of coffee. Just having that downtime is so important. And I'm not worried about my hair. I'm not worried about my nails. I'm not worried about any of that thing. What I'm fighting for is to keep my mental health intact, making sure mentally I'm together and I'm whole. I'm reading my word. I'm listening to Calm. I'm listening to scriptures, so we need to take this time out to reevaluate our lives, I think. And I really believe that God is using this season. He did not invent it, but he's using this season so that we can really acknowledge the important things in life, like family. That's so beautiful. How you and your husband are there with the kids and you're trying to keep some type of system with them, not just going wild and doing as they please, because we're going to get back to some level of normal. And when we do, then you would have to break them down to get them back, into the system. But you're keeping it afloat. And I said that to say this. I talked to several of my elderly friends that do not have this level of daily fellowships as we do. My husband, he does go out to work. I work from home. My daughter's here. And so we have a little time together. He calls during the day. He come home early during the evenings. But my elderly friends, they're alone. They live alone. And this isolation is really frustrating them, because of the fact they got their social, emotional needs met through going to service, through going out shopping and lunch and that type of thing, until they're really in a rut right now. I just call it an extended vacation. I get things done that I wouldn't normally get done. So I use it for the best. So what can they do, those seniors that are isolated? And many of them, they don't have as much mobility as we do to get out and go for a brief walk. One of them, she has a knee replacement surgery. The other one has a boot on her leg. And so their mobility is limited. However, I can hear the anxiety and the frustration and even the fear when people do come over. She says, I have to spray so much bleach. And girl, I spray so much bleach. And if I get a cold, I'm doing my toddies, and I put too much lemon into the lemon toddy. I put too much honey into my lemon toddy. Now her blood levels or
Oh,
300 and 400.
wow.
But it's fear that's taken over because of sitting in front of the TV,
Yes.
not knowing when this is going to be over, not knowing if she can pay her rent, will she have to move, will she get evicted? So there's a lot of stuff going on during this season. So what would you say to people like that are alone, other than the calm and that type of thing? Um, do they need to call into the hotline
So,
for some type of
mhm,
therapy?
yeah. So you're speaking of seniors in situations where they're not very mobile, and
Right.
maybe they don't have family members around. So that is a really challenging situation. I would definitely encourage them to pick the phone and call someone. And actually, if
Mhm.
they need anything, I would encourage them to reach out and ask for help. I would actually,
Mm,
if they are church going people, I would ask them to call the church. I know churches worship isn't occurring right now, but often there are people in the administrative office who's still taking calls and who's still
that's good.
helping people get their needs met. So if they are affiliated with a house of worship, I would ask them
Mhm.
to reach out and let them know what they need. And if they just need to talk, I would actually, if they have
Mhm.
family members, call and talk, or a friend, just call and talk to
Mhm.
somebody. Nothing in particular, but just to hear another person's voice. And that's if they don't have family nearby. If they do have family nearby, definitely call them, let them know what they need. They don't have to come in the house. The family member can
Absolutely.
drive by. Or if they need,
I love that.
tell them what they need, and maybe they can go to the family member or friend can go to the store, get what they need, sanitize it, and put it at their doorstep. If they need
Absolutely.
food, and find, I don't know what community, the people may be in, but many communities are trying to find out who the elders are, who the people are in need. Go to or call that community place and let them know that you are
Mm,
in need.
very good. Very good. Because the communities are really coming together.
Mhm.
And that's one good thing that have come, out of this situation, is that the communities are coming together. You see people sharing and caring for one another, even, you know, when their life is at stake. They're still caring and sharing um, with other people. I want to open up the lines to see if there is any questions at this time. Any questions for Dr. Chastity concerning stress, anxiety, depression? Please just go ahead and type that question in. We have a few minutes. We would love, love, love to hear from you tonight. If you have a question relating to anything that we have talked about, maybe something we've missed, please go ahead and share your comment. Go
While
ahead and share your, yeah,
while we're
Dr.
waiting,
Beth.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
while we're waiting, may I just ask that we, all of us, be mindful of what COVID-19 has given to us. It's so easy
Okay.
to focus on what it has taken away from us. For
Okay.
many of us, we're in a position where, to your point, you mentioned it's given us more family time. It has
Mm-hmm.
slowed us down to a pace where we truly have the opportunity to smell the roses. My family was
Yes.
super fast paced. My kids had an activity about every day. I was ripping and running, running and ripping. And now we are baking together. As I said,
Okay.
in family walks, we're doing experiments, we're engaging in activities. When they want to present a play to me, I'm actually watching and really listening instead of, come on, let's go to the next. So I'm actually
Yes.
able to be more present with them. So yes, COVID has taken a lot from us. But for those of us
Mm-hmm.
who are in what I would say privileged situations where you can do things for which to be grateful, realize that that is a privilege, that you have things, a lot of things during this time to which to be grateful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you did a clip one day last week or week before, and you were talking about the attitude of gratitude. And I think that is so paramount every day,
Yes.
especially during trying seasons, to remember the things that you're most grateful for. You know, whether or not you could be sick, down and out, bedridden, whatever, you have life. You have another day, you have another opportunity. You know, so there is always something. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't see that we have any comments. However, we've had quite a few of our Facebook and YouTube um, followers on. So again, I want to thank you all for listening. And please go ahead and share the show. We will definitely have Dr. Chastity back to continue the conversation, because I think this conversation needs to continue, because this is life. And just as you stated before, stress is a part of life. However, there are good stress and negative stress. So we want to make sure we keep that balance, and we want to be here for you to answer those hard questions. So make sure to go ahead and like and share the show. Start your own personal party, watch party. Awesome. Courtney says, awesome here. Let's see what we have here. Okay, I'm getting it up here. Courtney says, awesome, and thanks. Warren says, what resources is there for parents of special need children?
So that's a very good question. I actually will Google COVID-19 resources for special needs children, because unfortunately that's not a population that I work with. But there are so many COVID-19 resources out there. I would Google COVID-19 resources for parents of children with special needs.
Okay, very good, very good. So definitely want you to go ahead and do that. And then also, Dr. Chastity, at this time, let's go ahead and give that number out for those that are struggling with stress and anxiety, even depression, and would like to reach out, just feel that, you know, they need to have that conversation with someone. What number is that, and how can they reach someone?
So if you're feeling like harming yourself, you have a plan, there's intent, and you're overwhelmed and you just feel like you can't make it anymore and you need someone to talk to, there is a suicide hotline. The number is 1-800-273-TALK, TALK, 1-800-273-TALK.
273-TALK. Very good. And in our closing, as I mentioned before, I love this book. I love this book. We moved about 4 or 5 months ago. And trust me, this book was in my back seat because I love this book. Great resources. So how can our viewers and listeners actually receive a copy of your book?
Yes, my book is on Amazon and any other online bookstore.
Okay, so it's on Amazon and the online bookstores. Okay, so make sure to pick up Dr. Chastity's book. And again, Dr. Chastity, thank you for being my special guest and having this conversation. And as I stated before, we will have you back because we need to continue the conversation. Last minute thoughts for you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. If you would like to follow me for self-care tips, I'm at Dr. Chastity Adams, Facebook and Instagram. I'm going to ask that everyone be well and know that we're all in this together. I see you and I love you.
That's awesome. And I see you and I love you, Dr. Chastity. You're amazing professional. And I thank God for our path crossing. So we will see you next time.
Thank you.
So as we always say here, this has been your wake-up call. God bless.